Hey guys, how y'all doing today? I wanted to do this video outside because I wanted to pinpoint the flags and everything they're supposed to stand for and how I'm applying that to my life. But it's a little bit windy and chilly out here, so I'm gonna take this video to the inside. Hello guys, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is you are viewing this video. I am Lynetta Shay and this is Beautifying from the Inside Out. Recently in my life, I have found myself needing to defend myself without any resources, any help at all whatsoever, no matter the limits that I go to try to obtain help. I am very aware that there is a bigger in-depth reason behind this. There are so many secrets and things that have been hidden from me. However, I definitely want to read a small passage from the Declaration of Independence because I want to point out the right that we have as citizens and how people literally abuse their power when they stand back and conspire things to take place, or they say nothing and they watch things take place. So I just want to give you a brief bit of history that you may know or you may not know, but it is so that you can better understand my point of view, where I'm coming from, and how later on in the video piece some things together that have transpired in my life so you can kind of get my perspective and my thought process of why I would feel this way about certain things. So I just want to read something very briefly from the Declaration of Independence, which was July 4th in 1776. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate the governments long established should not be changed for light and transit causes, and accordingly all experience have shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and aspirations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and aspirations, all having a direct object, the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to the candid world. So the biggest thing for me with that statement is the fact that it is your right to be able to pursue happiness. No one should be able to come in between that. No one should alter that. Liberty. You should have liberty in the land in which you abide. That is the God-given right of your Creator, as it is stated in the Declaration of Independence. I want to point out, first of all, someone who was actually, his name is not in there, but if you do some research, he was very much a part of establishing the Declaration of Independence. Actually, more involved without his name even being present, and that is Thomas Paine. Now, I want to talk about the faith and the beliefs of the government and how it is literally not built on a Christian foundation, as well as Christianity and how it all plays a part in our rights, in our government, in our beliefs, and things of that nature. Now, Thomas Paine was someone who believed in God, but not the God of the Bible. He felt that the story of Jesus Christ was just a fable. But he was not the only one. If we move forward to some of the other founding fathers who we do know of, whose names are listed, they did not believe that either. They were also very reluctant to publicly or in writing admit their belief and their faith in Christianity or the beliefs of the Bible. Also, President Thompson made a vow when Christianity was actually implemented that said, "I vow not to undeceive future generations." That is a direct quote from him. I vow not to undeceive, meaning that we have been deceived in some form. Because why would President Thompson vow not to undeceive, right? Thomas Jefferson also talked very candidly and vividly about dreams in the book of Revelation and how he thought it was that of a maniac. So whatever is written there, they did not believe at all whatsoever. In fact, God was deliberately not put in the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. That to me is very odd, because the motto that we know of the United States of America is "In God We Trust." But if you read the documents and the treaties, they state nothing about God. Now, we have the freedom to practice religion of any kind in any form that we would like, whether it be light or dark. Also, people are able to practice things that help them get into political seats. That is very important. If you do not know your history, don't let something so tragic happen to you that you are forced to have to learn your rights, that you are forced to have to learn the laws of the land, the declarations and the treaties that have been laid out for you to abide by, to follow. Again, religion, as stated in this Declaration of Independence, if you go through it, is a code of conduct that is what it is. It is not said to be believed in the manner in which that we, as a people, followers of Christ, who believe in God the Most High, in the Bible, in the teachings, what we have been taught. That is not what our founding fathers believed in at all whatsoever. However, because there were already experiments that had taken place with slavery, they chose to put religion and Christianity in place because it is a code of conduct in which they want to deceive people that they should follow and abide by. That is why in Christianity and so many other religions, it's all the do's and don'ts. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't wear this, you can't wear that, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you can't act like this, you can't act like that, you can't listen to this, you can't listen to that, you can't drink this, you can't drink that, you can't say this, you can't say that. It's all of this because it is a code of conduct. John Adams was very clear on his perception of the Bible and Christianity and how he did not believe. But he did, however, believe in the teachings of the Shasta. Now, I'm not going to go deep into that again because I don't want to dwell too long on a lesson in history. But I definitely want to give you this information before I dive into my personal life so you understand how I am applying it to my life. John Adams also believed that God could not be known, that he was a spirit. So the story of, him manifesting himself as Jesus, being the Son of God and then being the same person, he did not believe that. He strongly believed that God could not be known, that he's such a powerful being that he would never manifest himself here on earth in human form and call himself the Son of himself. They went by reason, logic. They also didn't believe the Virgin Mary and her conception of Jesus, right? If they did a study and they had 10,000 women in a group and left them there for a certain amount of time and none of them just came pregnant out of nowhere, they are said to believe that it is something that is untrue because they cannot see it. There has to be reason. There has to be plausible evidence to say that this is true. The Treaty of Tripoli also declares that the government of the United States is not built on the Christian religion. So again, it is very important for you to know these things about the place that you live in, what you have been taught, what you have been deceived by for so long. There are even instances where, they've been to the other planets and there's life on other planets. There's so many documentaries about, sightings of UFOs or sightings of aliens and things of that nature. I actually watched a documentary and it was about Area 51 and something about a UFO, but they actually had an encounter with this being, this alien, whose body was different, was not like ours. Its cosmetic makeup was very different. The languages, there was a language barrier, but the alien was actually wanting to communicate. Also, the alien had some of the same goals. He actually went and was willing to do a procedure where there was something that was placed in his throat or something like that, so that there was some type of translation. Now, when it came to God and his belief in God, even as an alien, they believe in a supreme being. But even them, from what I've researched and the documentaries that I have watched, there is, quite questionable talk around, the belief and the honesty and what it is that we are said to abide by, because again, it is a code of conduct, and it is said plain for you in black and white in these treaties, in these declarations. I want to give one last point about history and some of the founding fathers, but I do want to give you a biblical verse. So in Genesis chapter 3 verse 7, it says that, and they knew that they were naked, and they covered themselves with fig leaves. Now, if you know nothing about history, again, educate yourself. But a lot of them, especially the founding fathers, were Masons, and they practiced, Masonic beliefs and traditions. Yes, so with that being said, it was questionable if Thomas Jefferson was actually a Mason, because he never came out and said it. However, on some of the literature, the Masonic literature back there, his name and his picture was found on almost all of it back then. Also, Benjamin Franklin was a Mason, and it was said that he almost never, very rarely, missed a meeting with his lodge. And he was also a part of a group called the Hellfire Club. The Hellfire Club was basically an occult, and it was known to practice satanic rituals and orgies and sex with prostitutes and sacrifices, human and animal sacrifices. In fact, 200 years after his death, on February 11th, 1998, the remains of 10 people were found beneath his home. And the decay of their bodies were classified of that being, had been dead 200 years ago, and that literally corresponded with the years that Benjamin Franklin lived in this home. And again, he was a Mason who practiced rituals. There were 10 bodies that were found, 4 adults and 6 children. There were also remains of animals as well. The remains of these animals and these individuals were dismantled. They were sawed on. They had been cut. Some of them had even been burnt. The char on them was there. So you could tell that something had taken place with fire because of the char on the remains. Again, Americans are able to have religious freedom, but also practice other things that help them get into political parties and political seats. That is very important for you to know. Now, how I want to apply these things to my life. Well, again, I want to go back to what I started with, and that is the pursuit of happiness. That is my God-given right here on this earth. It should not be altered. It should not be taken away from me in any way, shape, form, or fashion. It is my right to pursue happiness. No one should block that. I watched this movie called Foster Boy, and it's based on a true story, true facts, true events that happened that took place. I was very touched by the movie because I have been a foster girl at a point in time in my life. Some of the things that had happened to this boy while in foster care, again, I could relate because it happened to me as well. But one of the things that had taken place in his life is that he would get molested by his mother. She was a crackhead and she would get high, and it was when she got high that she would assault him. You know, he grew up and he started to write things down into raps. And that was how he was able to get out the things that he was taking place. In fact, when he had to testify on the stand, because of the PTSD that he had suffered, and his way of communication had been so severely altered and traumatized, it was literally the only way that he was able to initially get out the events that happened to them were through song. I was so touched by this because, again, when he began to rap his story, he talked about his mother being on crack and basically sexually assaulting him and beating him. Now, this woman that I know to be my mother, she did not sexually assault me. However, she was on crack and she brutally beat me and my siblings severely. We had been taken away from her so many times, and they gave us back to her time and time again. Even in my book, the novel that I wrote, A Piece of Me, The Memoirs of Shay and Perfect Angel, I had to put these events out as nonfiction, but they are actually facts. In there's an insert, there's something that I wrote, and I literally told the story of how she poured scalding hot water on me to wake me up, beat me naked, made me cook and prepare breakfast for my siblings, and then scrub the floors, bleeding in my nakedness in front of my siblings, and then made me get into a bath after the sweat had been on my naked body that had been beaten and scalded by hot water from her. A traumatic memory, but the abuse happened over and over and over and over again. Not only was I abused by her, I was abused by other family members. I remember the first time being taken out of her care, and my sister was just a baby, and we got placed, something happened. I remember I was only like 5 years old, and I remember something happened and the police came, and there were these calls, and they're like, "Where is there any family?" And I remember her being very frantic and calling around, and for whatever reason we got taken to an uncle's house of mine, and he was married to a woman named Ray, who they are divorced now. However, I remember being there, and at 5 years old, him beating me because my little sister was a baby and she was crying in the bed, and I went to go comfort her, and I was able to console her through the crib, and I was like singing to her, and he came in there and he beat me. He told me to stay in a child's place. His wife at the time, Ray, she came and said, that's enough. Leave the girl alone. And I remember then hearing her cry and her being beat as well. So here you have a woman and 2 little girls in a home being beat and abused by a man. Why? I referenced the movie Foster Boy because in this movie, which is based on a true story, the allegations that he was setting forth basically to the court or to the prosecution was just a bunch of made up stuff, because he had no witnesses to corroborate his story. He had no one who was willing to stand up and say that yes, in fact, these things had actually taken place and they were known. They were documented. They tried to set him up, put him in jail in this movie. They planted like drugs on him that were not his. And his attorney had came to him. Not only did they arrest him and place drugs on him that were not his and put him in a jail cell, then they turned around and put the person who had assaulted him while in foster care in the same cell as him, who came in there antagonizing him. But he was older now, so he wasn't going. He stood up for himself. He also, when his attorney came, literally was able to get him to give him some money, and then he was able to pay the guard and some of the inmates to kind of help him out to get information out of the person who had assaulted him, so that he was able to know who to go to, who was doing this to him, who did he have to reach to uncover these things. Now, there was a man that knew very well of this. Actually, the man had left some documents at the hotel door. The man left documents with the concierge at the hotel, and they brought them up to him. But they were not able to tell him who left these documents. There was no name on them or anything, but there were documents stating that these things had taken place, that they were known facts, they were known incidents, there was a known history of things that had taken place. But the child care system, the woman who was being accused of deliberately placing this child, because the system was basically making more money off of these kids. And then she was pocketing some money too. So not only was the system making more money with the kids that were being placed, then they were giving her money on the side too for doing these things. But there was somebody who knew about it. Now, he obviously felt away because this that happened to several children. So he wanted the information to be known, but he did not want to be implicated. He did not want to speak up. Even the attorney there, somebody hit him with the car. They had flew his son out. He had recently been divorced, and the mother of his child had flew his son out by himself from Chicago to be with him where he was, which I think was like in New York or something like that. Now, the people went even as far as to hack the phone of the attorney and somehow block the calls from when his son was calling, so that he was not able to pick his son up from the airport. His son ended up at the police station and almost went to child care services. So the people were willing to go really far to cover things up. They wanted to protect their reputations. They wanted to continue to eat and get money. It's all about money. All about money, not about love, not about people. Like literally being able to pursue happiness, to live life. And the fact that this boy had been a ward of the state, that was something else that he had working against him. Because in society, if you're in foster care, whether it's your fault or not, generally the public looks at you like you're less than because you didn't have a 2-parent home and live up in this, and grow up in the suburbs and, go to a great school and, have this great family. But those are things that you cannot control. So to be judged for the acts, the abuse, the neglect of adults who were supposed to care for you is wrong. Just so that they can continue to make money. Your life, your liberty, your pursuit of happiness means nothing to them. As long as they are able to continue to live their lavish lifestyles, they do not care. I can relate. I've been through these things. So it was a very touching story for me. Him and his adopted family were not able to settle. They wanted justice. But that man who kept dropping off the papers, see, the attorney had a hard time presenting them in the court of law because there was no one to say that these were actual documents, that they were not made up. And someone to say, hey, this is true. This is facts. But what I learned from that movie is it takes one person to stand up. It takes one person to speak the truth. It takes one person to say this ugliness, this injustice, this abuse to innocent people, innocent children should stop. At the last minute, the man ended up showing up in court and he was able to corroborate that, yes, the documents were in fact true. And that he was the one who got him out of the trash can because the woman who, was on the prosecution side who needed to defend herself had thrown him in the trash. He worked with her at the agency, so he was able to say, I watched her throw this in the trash to get rid of this evidence, and I went in the trash and took it out. It takes one person with a good heart. One person. That's all it takes. Just one. Just one. One person. No matter how many people are lying, it takes one person for the entire trajectory of a situation to change. For it to be looked into a little bit further. It takes one person. I watched another movie that was based on a true story, and it was called Identity Theft. And it was about a woman who her identity had been stolen from some psychopath chick who worked at the real estate company. When she went to go buy her home, the woman started, took her card numbers and was charging things to her account, had literally went and got an ID and a license in this woman's name. The BNV had allowed this. That was so crazy to me. So now you have two people walking around with an ID with the same name, the same birthday, same everything on it. But one is real and one is fake. I can relate. I can relate. My identity has been stolen, and I've been dealing with it for years. And I talk about it very freely in a couple of my videos. But the thing is that this woman whose identity was stolen, it was affecting her life in the worst way. And it was also affecting her mental health, because she's going to work, making this money, putting it into an account. And the woman had even went into the bank and tried to do some weird stuff, right? And so her money was being drained from her account. The woman had to go open up a whole new account, get her, change the direct deposit with her employer and all these different things, because her identity had been stolen. The woman who sold her identity had even went as far as to go and purchase the same exact vehicle as she had. She dyed her hair. She got lipo to match the body fraction of the other woman, of the real person. Just craziness. And again, this was affecting this woman's mental health, because she had a mortgage that she had to pay for now. She's not being able to pay her bills. But the good thing about her is that she had a husband who was there for her and very supportive. And even when she was having these breakdowns, she had somebody there to have her back. The difference between her and I is that I don't have that support. So when I have a breakdown, it's just me, God, and my angels. And it is crazy to me that, I've taken all the proper steps to file identity theft. I've taken all the proper steps to get freezes on credits and all these different things. But these people have even went as far as to hack my emails, like I said, intercept my mail and things of that nature. There is you can do an address verification on yourself, and then it will give you a history of addresses that you've lived in. There are addresses that are listed there that I've never lived at in my entire life. Don't even know where this is. Never heard of this address in my life. Never lived on this street. The woman in this movie, she also almost got arrested for drug laundering or the distribution of drugs or attempt to distribute or something crazy like that, because the woman who had stolen her identity had went to Mexico, got some drugs from some people or something like that, was driving a truck filled with hay, got pulled over by the police, and then it's found out. But again, she has the identity of somebody else, so when she gets arrested, it looks like she's this other person that she is not. Now here this woman is flying out, trying to go somewhere, trying to get some help to help her situation, and as she's getting back on the plane, they arresting her. Now, good thing that she had been so adamant, and there actually was an officer who was actually willing to help her. She was connected with a detective that was willing to help her. That she was able to call him, and he, walked in, and she was able to be released because, he was able to say, hey, she's been dealing with this identity theft thing for a while now. We're trying to figure this out, right? But they knew who the person was. Now imagine not knowing who's doing it to you. How do you help yourself? How do you, find the resources? Which even with her in the movie, there were not many resources. When you go to the police station and you try to file identity theft, they're like, oh, did you get your bank account changed? Did you cancel all your cards? Did you put a freeze in your credit? That should do it. I can relate because I'm going through this. People are not really willing to go above and beyond. Now, the difference between her and I is that she was a Caucasian woman, and here I am identifying as an African American female. I read a study that had been done before, and how Black women are viewed as far as personality. And even if the Black woman was the calmest in any situation, she was still said to be the most aggressive, or the most confrontational, or the most unstable. Even if she was the calmest person. So they played this with different scenarios with different races. White, Asian, men, women, Indian. They did it with different people. They put them in the same situation and watched their reactions. And then they had people who, were anonymously documenting and surveying the study. No matter what. If the white man got so mad and started yelling, and the Black woman was very calm, there were still people who said that she was irate, she was this, she was that, when it was clearly seen that she was not. So there's another disadvantage and a barrier when it comes to me identifying as an African American woman and me getting the help that I need, especially when I walk into certain doors. I was afraid for my life a couple of weeks back, and I had to go to the police station. And there was a white officer, and there was a white male officer, and then there was a Black female officer. I'm explaining to them, how I keep, filing these reports, and I keep, but I'm not getting a response from anybody, even down to the Attorney General. I submitted all this information to them in 2023. It's 2024, 6 months into it. I physically went to the Attorney General's office as well last week. Still Nothing. They wouldn't even let me up, to the point where the security people was like, that's odd that they won't let you upstairs. Like, we let people up there all the time. But when I was in that police station, I was very offended because this woman was like, black woman was like, do you have a social worker or something that we could call? So she was insulting me, trying to say that, because of my emotion and my state of fear of my life, that I needed some other help. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how you're supposed to act when you know that your life is being targeted. Now, the thing with, again, you have to have proof, you have to prove it. But when I come with proof, it's not good enough. Nobody wants to look into it. I had photographs, I had license plates, numbers, and everything. Well, how are we supposed to know? I'm telling you, this is what it is. Can somebody at least, do their due diligence, do their job to look further into it? No. This could be anybody. How are we supposed to know? I was at the library and I was being like stalked by somebody who was like literally watching me, and I took a video of them and also some photos, and the police was like, oh, well, why didn't you go to an officer? Oh, well, duh. I mean, like, come on now, if you're a criminal, by the time I get to the security officer in the library, they're gonna be long gone. Because so even me having the photographs and the videos, that's not soundproof. They're not able to determine. They're not going to look into it, because I was told, we got so many other things going on right now. We really don't have the time to be looking at something that you just think that you have no soundproof of. So I was like, oh, okay, well, if I just turn up unalived, y'all going to be like, oh, God, she was really telling the truth all this time. All this time. There's another thing that's very interesting to me when speaking about proof. I have this birth certificate here. And I also have another one that I'm not able to access at this time. Because of my car situation. However, this birth certificate in itself looks a little odd. It is not like the first one that I had. The original one that I had doesn't have this format. It is the older ones that we used to get, white paper with the black writing with all the lines and the boxes are filled in. It tells you the city, the state, the time of birth, the county, the hospital you were born at, the mother's name, the father's name, and all these other different things are on the older versions of the birth certificates, right? Now, on this new birth certificate, the format is totally different, and there's not as much information as it is on the original one. The county is also listed on the original ones as well. Now, I was supposedly born in 1984. Now, in the 80s, or all the way back then, if you were born out of wedlock, your name as a child was not mentioned in the paper. You know how you guys put like births in the paper. So if you were born out of wedlock, if your parents were not married when you were born, your name would not be placed in the paper. It'll just say this person and this person gave birth to a baby boy and a baby girl on this day, right? Now, because I don't have access to the other birth certificate at this time, I think that's some public information that can be looked up. If you were to look me up as a person, if you knew my birthday, you would be able to look me up as a person and, back in 1984, and it would say that just a baby girl was born to this person and this person. However, the last names of these people are not the same in the paper. But on this birth certificate, these two people have the same last name. And it even says that it says last name prior to first marriage is Peck, which is the same last name as mine. However, the mother and the father in this birth certificate have the same last name. Why in the hell? If you are a married couple, why would you give your child a different last name than the both of you? The original birth certificate that I had, this woman's last name is not the last name on here. It is the same last name as mine, Peck. The father's name remains the same on both documents. On the original birth certificate, it says Franklin County. On this birth certificate, it says Delaware County. It just says Ohio of the birthplace. It does not say the city. On the original birth certificate, it said the city, Columbus, Ohio, and it said Franklin County. It also states the hospital on the original birth certificate. That is not here. So again, I'm going to keep saying it. When they call me crazy, when they say all these things about me, I have a lot more proof than they know. These are medical records. I did a video and I stated in the video that Columbus is a big city, but it is a small town. People were very well known and very well connected in this small town. So there is someone that I look exactly like, and I belong to them. They are very well known. And like a Judas, they want to keep denying me. And again, the people who are willing to help me on my journey that have told me, do not say anything. Because politicians are not only able to make documents go away, they're able to make you go away. They are very afraid for me. They don't want me to be in prison. They don't want me to lose my life. But I'm going to say it again. I would do my children a disservice to be too afraid to speak up and out. Whatever is happening, whatever is going on, whatever is taking place, my children have also been coerced, maybe threatened, maybe paid even. The life that I have known has been fraudulent. My entire life has been a lie. I've been lied to my whole life. I'm taking a really big risk putting all this information out here publicly. But the fact that when I go to the courthouse and when I ask questions and I talk to different people, when I leave out certain information, there was also a man that I spoke with at the courthouse when I had went to to see if I was like married somehow. And I even stated, like, I went to the Attorney General's office and I'm trying to get all this information, and I've found this identity theft thing, and no one's calling me back, no one's responding, even after I sent them over all this information that it has. And the man said, sounds to me like people are being paid off. I'm putting this information out here publicly because no matter the channels that I go through properly to take, I'm getting no response. If a person files identity theft and you ask them to send over all the documentation that they have in regards to that, and you do that, why would you not respond for over a year? You don't respond to emails, you don't respond to calls, voicemails, or nothing. Not even your manager, not even your supervisor hasn't called me back either. It's like I'm treated like a nobody, like I don't exist. Like my claims aren't valid. Like you just took all this information that I gave you and did what with it? You asked me to do something, I did it, and then I never hear from you. It's been over a year. What's really going on here? Going through all of this, what I will say is very important is remembering details. Remembering the things that have taken place over my life, over the course of my life. Remembering what people have said. Remembering the things that I have seen. There's an aunt of mine who had set somebody's house on fire when we were kids, but she said it was me, and it wasn't me, it was her who did it. She set the fire and blamed it on me. And the family was like, yeah, we'll just say it's her, we'll just say it's her. Like the adults knew that it wasn't me. The adults knew that it was her. But to cover for her, they blamed me. And I was younger than her. I also remember growing up and me walking down the street with this woman who is said to be my mother, but she's already said to me, you're not my daughter. About 2 years ago. You're not my daughter. She said that. Anyway, we were walking down the street, and I believe we were on, like, I want to say Studer, and we were walking towards Livingston, but I could be wrong about the street, but I do know that we were walking towards Livingston, and there was a house, and she goes, that house is yours. It's supposed to be given over to you when you're 18, but you'll never live in it. You'll never get it. I remember when I talked about, Benjamin Franklin and him being a part of the Hellfire Club, and how, it basically was in a cult and they practiced ritualistic things, right? And I wanted to point out the founding fathers and their discrepancies of their beliefs, because, if it was not within reason, if it was something that could not be proved, that could happen, or that has never happened before, and it's just like one account or one instance of these things, if there's nobody else to say that it is true, then it's just not true for them. So that's why for them, a lot of things in the Bible were like fables or fabrication, because there was a lot of things that cannot be proved, that could not be scientifically proven, or could not be backed up with evidence. So they think of them as fables. However, I do have a reason to believe that this family is like a coven or a part of an occult or things like that. But as a child, I remember I lived in an apartment on Livingston with this woman who I had to call mother. And this apartment had like French doors or whatever, and we lived on the top level. And it was a party. They were having a party. And one of my uncles was really good friends with Buster Douglas, and I remember him being there. He's like a celebrity, and I just remember how everybody was like, hey and stuff when he walked in. But I was so little as a child that I didn't know anything about celebrities and all that starstruck jazz or treating them a certain way. I was just a child. I was just a baby. But if you go back to my first video where I talk about my testimony and having a spiritual awakening, I tell a story about, when I asked my mother about, something happened in that house. What happened? I said, I keep having this reoccurring dream about that so vividly. But the part that I'm like, what happened? But I know what happened. I just wanted her to tell me if she remembered what happened. But I talked about Benjamin Franklin and them finding the 10 bodies at his home and how he was a part of the occult and how they practice ritualistic things, which would sometimes be human and animal sacrifices. I remember being placed on a table and there were candles around my body, a bunch of them, and then all these people standing around me. But something did happen, and what happened was a very supernatural occurrence, something that I cannot prove, something that you literally had to be there. But I'm very connected with God. I'm very connected with my angels. And my life was saved by an angel that day. And they were very angry. They tore that place up. It was glass everywhere. And I remember everybody fleeing and screaming and scattering like roaches. And when it was all over with, there was nobody left in the house but me, my grandmother, and my mother. And they looked so terrified, picking up glass and stuff off the floor. As I sat up on this table now, with a teddy bear, I remember distinctly. Also in that video, I talked about, when I continued to ask my mother certain things, and again, she had said to me the story in the Bible about, falling angels coming down from heaven and having immortal children. So I needed to leave that alone and go pray. But she also had said that she felt like me being imprisoned and going through everything that I was going through had something to do with my ancestors. And I can't help but wonder, why in the hell would my ancestors want me in jail? Why? For what? She even said, my ex, she was like, he's gonna be a millionaire. God's got something for him. You're gonna marry a preacher. That brings me to, I've never been addicted to anything. I've never been on drugs. I did used to smoke marijuana, but I no longer smoke marijuana. And it's funny to me because when I stopped smoking marijuana, a year and a half later, they wanted to legalize it. It's like, what? All that time I was smoking it illegally, and now it's legal. But marijuana used to be my thing, but it is not any longer. Now, being in a relationship with my ex, he had wanted me to do ecstasy with him, and we had went to a suite, Bellamere Suites. And so I did it with him that time, and I did not like the way that it made me feel. It was like, it was cool for what it was when I did it initially, because it was like a sexual enhancer. But really what I came to know about the drug is it really just enhances the feeling that you were feeling at that time. Now what's all in that, I don't know. But I did it with him that one time, but I was like, I don't really like this, because I feel like I was up for like a day and a half, almost 2 days. I'm already somebody who is a socializer. I like to talk. So, I mean, I felt like I was talking so much chatty Cathy, like I was getting even tired of hearing my own voice. That's how much the drug like made me keep going and going and going. Now, the next time that I had this drug, it was not because I willingly took it. He literally choked me, forced it down my throat, and made me take this drug. For him, I guess he thought, that we would engage and have fun. But first of all, you cannot force to make somebody do something that they don't want to do and then think you're going to have a good night after that. It doesn't work like that, for starters. For two, I believe he did that for setup reasons. Because I became, once it like kicked in, I was like really tripped out. I'm like, I don't like this. I'm on drugs. You got me on drugs. Like, it was just like crazy. Like, I did not want to do it. I did not like how I felt. So I started freaking out, flipping out. I was like throwing clothes and stuff and throwing dishes, and I was just like having an episode because somebody then drugged me against my will. And something was wrong with his vehicle or something at the time, and I had gotten into a car accident a few weeks back. So my vehicle worked, but it was like really messed up in the front, so I didn't really drive it all like that. Nonetheless, his mother had come to pick him up, and I was like still tripping, like, he didn't gave me these drugs that I didn't want to take, blah, 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 or whatever. And I'm like yelling and crying and like, why would he do this to me and all this stuff or whatever. And I remember her saying, did you get the video? So that fast forward to when I was getting warrants out for my arrest for the mother of his children placing her kids on my porch and then calling the police that came so fast, almost like they was around the corner. And this was like months later, so no drugs and nothing like that was involved when she was dropping her kids on the porch and stuff like that. But the police came so fast, and I remember asking him, like, how come they got here so fast? And he said to me that she knows what to say to them. She knows some military lingo or codes or something that you say to get them to come real fast. Now, fast forward to the next day when I'm like nervous about this lady, and the police was out there, and I didn't go to jail or nothing, and they didn't see me, but she had made a report and saying that I was there, and I knew that I had this fraudulent restraining order out on me and all this stuff or whatever. So I called the attorney's office, and I'm trying to see if I have warrants, because I had already hired an attorney for the first warrant and for this whole thing that I didn't even know that was taking place behind my back without my knowledge. How does somebody have a restraining order and don't know it? I didn't know until like 8 or 9 months after it was already in place. I had no idea. So I called this attorney's office that I've hired this attorney or whatever, and they're like, no, we don't see any warrants or whatever. I'm like, okay, I breathe. But my intuition was like, no. I called a courthouse, and the courthouse said that I do. I got 4 active warrants. What? I knew about the one. I already had that one, so I have 3 additional ones now. So after I get, whatever, number that they gave me for the warrants or the case that it was going to be applied to or whatever, I called the attorney's office back. And then they're like, oh, yeah. No. Actually, I called the attorney's office back and they were like, no, we don't see him. We still don't see him. I don't know what they talking about, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, screw this. I'm about to go down to the attorney's office. So that's what I did. But before I left the house, my ex was like, I'm about to be a king. Your fiance is like losing her mind, scared as hell for her freedom, for something that she didn't do. And you're steady talking about you're going to be a king when she's on her way leaving the house to go see the attorney, scared for her freedom? How does that make you about to be a king? You see, the details matter. What people say matter. A month prior to that, him and I had went on another thing. We used to do these staycations, and we went somewhere and we got like a room. We would do like these romantic type getaways and what have you, and we got a room and it was called Africa. And I think it was in Perry, Ohio, or Perrysville, Ohio, or something like that. Nonetheless, when we were on the way back, I got a call from my sister, and she had overdosed, and she was at the hospital. She was at the Riverside off of Olentangy, and this was in 2021. And I went there to see her, like she had asked, and she was saying all this stuff to me when she was in there, and she said, we did something to you. I wouldn't forgive us if I were you. But she never said what they did. She also said, I will never forgive her for what she did to our brother. Now, again, that takes me back to being in a cult or coven and them practicing rituals, satanic rituals, and doing human sacrifices. My brother had passed away. They were very weird after that. She didn't want to have a funeral for him. She got him cremated. Initially, she wanted me to, talk to like the funeral home and the corners and things like that. And then one day she just like flipped out. Like one day, the day that I'm talking to them, everything's all good. The very next day, when I'm trying to communicate with her in the funeral home, she just flips out. I end up contacting the funeral home about something, and they were like, your mom said she doesn't want us to talk to you anymore, blah, 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 blah. What is going on? Again, she said, I'll never forgive her for what she did to our brother. Everybody acted so weird surrounding his death. I don't really know what these people are into, but I'm not like them. We are not the same. There's a lot of stuff that I cannot prove, and that I don't have the resources and the means to get the help that I need, or even people who are willing to work with me, because again, when you have people in high places, we're talking politicians and stuff like that, they have the ability to make things disappear. There was a smear campaign and several of them going on, but it's like to continue to block my work. They continue to block me working, being legally employed, just even having to deal with, false allegations and having to go to jail and all of that. That is halting my pursuit of happiness. The fact that every time I go to apply for a job, I'm getting an adverse action because of the things that are showing up on my background. And these are false allegations. This is a false, I didn't even get arrested. I turned myself in and get the warrants lifted. But all of this is false, and it shows up that I've been arrested for these things, and they just look like bad things. So it blocks my employment. I worked for an employer called Mr. Mike's Final Break on Main Street, and the owner it was really weird, really ironic that nobody knew that I bartend there or whatever. My cousin randomly called me one day and I was like, I'm at work. She like, oh, where you working? I'm like, at this bar or whatever, blah, blah, blah. She like, okay, I'm about to come up there and see you. So she comes up there and see me. The very next day after she came to see me and said I had a drink at that bar, the owner comes to me and it's like, let me talk to you. He wanted me to sit on his lap, and I was just like all weirded out about that. Like, what? So he talks to me about, how I'm so beautiful and how him and his friends have like an apartment, 2 blocks or something behind the bar. And, they kind of go there and they like, take their mistresses or whatever there, right? And he was like, I would really like to have like a night with you or have an experience with you or whatever. And I was like, no, I'm good. And he was like, okay, that's fine. This will be your last day at work. I was like, okay, cool. Because I'm not willing to sleep with people for jobs. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being fired and let go because I don't want to sleep with somebody. I'm okay with that. They literally have tried to block me from working every which way. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm a person with many talents. I'm highly educated. I am a person who is multifaceted. I can learn very quickly. So, and I have a very abstract way of thinking. I'm very innovative. And so I literally was like, okay, I can't get a regular job. I can't, they blocking me from bartending and stuff like that. For real. Okay, so what? I was like, okay, I'm going to go to social media. I'm going to just, be an influencer. Just do that. They even block that. They take my views down. I be having one amount of followers one day, then it'll go down to this. It's like whatever they can do to try to keep me away from monetizing. I literally could go on and on with a lot of details and evidence that I have, but I know that this video has already probably been quite long. And I don't want to give an overload of information. Also, I don't want to give too much information. But I really am lost for how to help myself when I'm being blocked from getting help. And it is a violation of my rights as a human to block my pursuit of happiness. I've done nothing to anybody. I've only tried to live my life. Even with, my two youngest children, I've never had them taken away from me, legally by children's services or anything like that. But I will say that, I had left them in the care of my mother, and then their fathers came there without my knowledge to pick my kids up. And then the next thing I know, I'm in the battle of my life for my children, but only at the hands of this woman. So again, I can go on and on with theories, but I also don't want to overload myself with theories. I will continue to search for facts and continue to do what it is that I can do to help myself. Maybe I will catch the eye of someone who has a heart, someone who's willing to stand up and tell the truth, someone who is willing to really fight for justice. I've been through so much in a lifetime from a child, and it's so unfair. It's so unfair to keep going and to keep trying and to have the best intentions and to be good to people, and they just want to destroy you. Now, when you deal with the justice system and the courts, you cannot act with emotions. But this is very candid. This is not a courtroom. This is the only place that I'm able to be myself and show my authenticity and let it out and wear my heart on my sleeve. And even with that, I still hold back. People don't know how many nights I cry, how hard I pray, how strong my faith is. I just wanted to stop. I just want to know the truth. And I want this nightmare to go away. I did not create it. I did not create it. Honestly, I don't know how I made it this far. But it is my belief in God. It is my angels walking with me, comforting me. I have not one person in the world who stands with me. Yet I still don't feel lonely, and I'm still happy. But I'm human, and I break. I break down. I'm not gonna break, but I definitely have bent, cracked, been broken into pieces that I had to put back together, all on my own, at the hands of criminals and corrupt law officials. I stand in my truth. I stand in my power, and I will not stop. Y'all be blessed. Don't give up. Don't give up.